Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and today we will start with next chapter of class 6 history. Chapter 3, From Gathering to Growing Food. So in the last two chapters we have seen about the hunter gatherers, and now from that we are going towards the growing food. So chapter 3 starts with Nunu's lunch. Nunu was eating her favorite food: boiled rice, squash, pumpkins, beans, and meat. Her grandmother had grown the squash, pumpkin, and beans in the little garden plot at the back of her house. She remembered the food had been so different when she had been to Madhya Pradesh as part of a school trip. It was hot and spicy. So she wondered, why was that so? So let's see about this answer in chapter 3. We are starting this chapter with varieties of foods. Today, most of our food, such as fruit, vegetables, grain, milk, and meat, comes from plants that are grown and animals that are reared. Different plants grow in different conditions. We all know that different plants need different climatic conditions for their growth, such as rice, for example, requires more water as compared to wheat and barley. This explains us why farmers grow some crops in some areas and not in other areas. Even it is same in different animals, as different animals also prefer different environments, such as sheep and goat can survive more easily than cattle in dry, hilly environments. But as we have seen in the last chapter, women and men did not always produce their own food. They gathered their food from plants and animals. That's why they were known as hunter gatherers. Now we will study how the beginning of farming and herding was done. So as we have seen in the last chapter that climate of world was changing, and so were plants and animals that people used as food. Men, women, and children probably observed several things: the places where edible plants were found, how seeds broke off stalks, fell on the ground, and new plants sprouted from them. Perhaps they began looking after plants because they were observing the plants, how, how and where edible plants were found, how seeds were broke off from stalks, fell on the ground, and then new plants emerged or sprout from those seeds. So they began looking after plants, protecting them from birds and animals so that they could grow and the seeds could ripen. And slowly in this way, people became farmers. Women, men, and children could also attract and then tame animals by leaving food for them near their shelter. So, women, men, and children they attract animals by leaving food for them near their shelters. So, the first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestor of the dog. Later, people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps where they lived. These animals were sheep, goat, cattle, and also pig lived in herds, and most of them ate grass. Often, people protected these animals from attacks by other wild animals, and this is how they became herders. So we have seen how people became farmers and how people became herders. So this is the people became farmers and how they became herders. Now, the question comes, what is domestication? So, domestication is the name given to the process in which people grow plants and look after animals. So plants and animals that are tended by people become different from wild animals and plants because people select plants and animals for domestication. They select those plants and animals that are not prone to disease. Also select plants that yield large size grain, have strong stalks capable of bearing the weight of ripe grain, and seeds from selected plants are preserved and sown to ensure new plants will have same qualities. So the plants and animals were also selected by people for the domestication purpose. And amongst animals, those that are relatively gentle are selected for breeding purpose. As a result, gradually domesticated animals and plants become different from wild animals and plants. For example, teeth and horns of wild animals are usually much larger than those of domesticated animals, as we can see in this image. What is domestication? Domestication is a process in which people grow plants and look after animals. And it was a gradual process that took place in many parts of the world. It began about 12,000 years ago, and virtually all plant and animal produce that we use as food today is a result of domestication. Some of earliest plants to be domesticated were wheat and barley, and earliest domesticated animals include sheep and goat. So, earliest plants to be domesticated were wheat and barley, and domesticated animals include sheep and goat. In this image, we can see the teeth of two sets of teeth, one of wild animal and second of domesticated animal. So the smaller one are for the domesticated and larger one are for the wild. D for domesticated and W for wild. Now, a new way of life. If you plant a seed, you will notice that it takes some time to grow, which may be from several days, weeks, months, and in some cases it may be years. And when people began growing plants, it meant that they had to stay at same place for a long time because to look after the plants, to water, for weeding, driving away animals and birds till the grain ripened. And then the grain had to be used carefully. As grain had to be stored for both food and seed, people had to think of ways of storing it. In many areas, they began making large clay pots or wove baskets or dug pits into the ground for the storing purpose of the grain. Now, we have seen storing plants, now storing animals. Animals multiply naturally as we all know. Besides, if they are looked carefully, they provide us with milk, which is a very important source of food, and meat whenever required. In other words, we can say animals that are reared can be used as a store of food. Finding out about the first farmers and herders. So let's see map 2 at page 14, which is in last chapter. We will notice there a number of blue squares and each marks a site from where archaeologists have found evidence of early farmers and herders. So let's go to map 2 at page number 14. With blue squares, we will see the places. And this is our map 2 with some important archaeological sites. And we will here see the places of earlier farmers and herders. So that are with blue squares. And with blue squares, these are also known as the Neolithic sites, you can see here. Neolithic sites are the sites which are about 10,000 years ago. So the sites are Burzahon, Mehergarh, Koldiva, Mahagara, Chiran, Daujali Hugging, Halur, Payampally. So these are the 8 Neolithic sites where earlier farmers and herders were found. You can also take a screenshot for the reference purpose. The sites are Burzahom, Mehergarh, Koldheva, Mahagara, Chirand, Daujali Hugging, Halur and Payampally. In the topmost north of to present day India, to northwest, northeast, south, we have total sites. 8 sites are there. So these are Burzahom, Mehergarh, Koldiva, Mahagara, Chiran, Daujali Hugging, Halur and Payampally. Now, let's go to the chapter. Yes, finding about the first farmers and herders. So, these sites which we have seen right now have evidence of early farmers and herders. And these are found all over the subcontinent, and we have seen that some of most important ones in northwest, in present-day Kashmir, East and South India. So, to find out whether these sites were settlements of farmers and herders, scientists study evidence of plants and animal bones. One of the most exciting finds includes remains of burnt grain, but there are two chances that they have been burnt accidentally or on purpose. Scientists can identify these grains, and so we know that a number of crops were grown in different parts of the subcontinent. They can also identify the bones of different animals. So, here given a table to see where evidence of grain and bones of domesticated animals have been found. So, let us see. And you can also take a screenshot of this for the reference purpose. In one side there is grain and bones along with the other sides. So wheat and barley are the grains and sheep, goat, cattle bones were found at Mehergarh site, which is in present day Pakistan. Next, rice, grain and fragmentary animal bones were found in Koldiva in present-day Uttar Pradesh. Rice, grain and cattle bones were found in Mahagara in present-day Uttar Pradesh. Wheat and lentil grains were found in Gufkral in present-day Kashmir. Wheat and lentil grain and dog, cattle, sheep, goat, buffalo bones were found in Burzahom in present-day Kashmir. Next, wheat, green gram and barley grain along with buffalo and ox bones were found in Chirand, which is in present-day Bihar. Millet, grain and cattle, sheep, goat, pig bones were found in Halur in present-day Andhra Pradesh. Last but not least, black gram and millet grains along with cattle, sheep and pig bones were found in Payampally, which is also in present-day Andhra Pradesh. These are just some of the sites from which grain and bones have been found. So these are the sites: Mehergarh, Koldiva, Mahagara, Gufkral, Burzahom, Chiran, Halur and Payampally along with their present day locations. Now, we have seen from gathering to growing food, but now towards the settled life. Archaeologists have found traces of huts or houses at some sites. We have seen that to grow plants and rear animal, people have to stay at the same place for a long time. So they must have been settled there. So for that, archaeologists have found traces of huts or houses at some sites. For instance, in Burzahom, present-day Kashmir, people built pit houses. Pit houses were the houses which were dug into the ground with steps leading into them. They may have been providing shelter in cold weather because we know in Kashmir it always remains cold weather. So the houses were built in that type only. Archaeologists also found cooking huts both inside and outside the huts, which suggests that depending upon the weather, people could cook food either indoors or outdoors. Stone tools have also found from many sites as well. And many of these are different from earlier Paleolithic tools. So these were different, that's why they are called Neolithic. And these include tools that were polished to give a fine cutting edge, and mortars and pestles used for grinding grain and other plant produce. Mortars and pestles are used for grinding grain even today, even after several thousand years later. And at the same time, tools of Paleolithic types continued to be made and used. And remember, some tools were also made of bone. So, here is an image of new stone tools. These all are the new stone tools of the Neolithic period. These all are of Neolithic period. Many kinds of earthen pots have also been found. These were sometimes decorated and were used for storing things. People began using pots for cooking food, especially for grains like rice, wheat, and lentils. They now became an important part of the diet. Besides this, they began weaving cloth using different kinds of materials such as cotton that could now be grown. So, here a question arises. Did things change everywhere and all at once? So, not quite. In many areas, men and women still continued to hunt and gather food, and elsewhere, people have adopted farming and herding slowly over several thousand years. Besides, in some cases, people try to combine these activities, doing different things during different seasons. As we have seen, different plants grow in different seasons, and different animals are found in different climatic conditions. So, people try to combine these activities doing different things during different seasons. Now, we have seen all this, but what about other customs and practices? So, archaeology does not tell us directly about this, but scholars have studied the lives of present-day farmers who practice simple agriculture. They have also studied the lives of herders. Many of these farmers and herders live in groups called tribes. But what are tribes? Scholars find that they follow certain customs and practices that may have existed earlier as well. But let us know firstly what are tribes. Usually 2 to 3 generations live together in small settlements or villages, and most families are related to one another, and groups of some such families form a tribe. Means 2 or 3 generations live together in small areas, or we can say villages, and most of the families of these generations were related to one another, and groups of such families form a tribe. Members of tribe follow occupations such as hunting, gathering, farming, herding, and fishing. And usually women do most of agricultural work such as preparing the ground, sowing seeds, looking after the growing plants, and harvesting grain. Children often look after plants. driving away animals and birds that might eat them. Women also thresh, husk, and grind grain. Men usually lead large herds of animals in search of pasture. Pasture is chara, chara for the animals. Children often look after small flocks. The cleaning of animals and milking is done by both men and women, and even both of them make pots, baskets, tools, and huts. They also take part in singing, dancing, and decorating their huts. Some men are also regarded as leaders because they may be old and experienced or can be young, brave warriors or priests. All women are respected for their wisdom and experience, means for their knowledge and experience. Tribes have rich and unique cultural traditions, including their own language, music, stories, and painting, and may have their own gods and goddesses also. What makes tribes different from many other societies that we'll be studying about is that land, forest, grassland, and water are regarded as the wealth of entire tribe, and everybody shares and uses these together. And there are no sharp differences between rich and poor. So there was no any difference between rich and poor, and they all were using the everything like land, forest, grassland, and water are regarded as the wealth of the entire tribe. Everybody shares it and uses this together without any differences. Now, a closer look at living and dying in Mehergarh. Mehergarh is in present-day Pakistan. This site is located in a fertile plain near the Bolan Pass, which is one of the most important routes into Iran. Mehergarh was probably one of the places where women and men learned to grow barley and wheat. So Mehergarh was one of the places where women and men learned to grow barley and wheat. Even learned to rear sheep and goats for the first time in the area of Mehergarh. So Mehergarh was one of the places where women and men learned to grow wheat and barley and also learned to rear sheep and goats for the first time. And it is one of the earliest villages that we know about. Archaeologists who excavated the site found evidence of many kinds of animal bones from earliest levels. These included bones of wild animals such as deer and pig. In later levels, they found more bones of sheep and goat, and in still later levels, cattle bones are most common, suggesting that this was the animal that was generally kept by the people. Now, earlier and later levels. When archaeologists are digging at an excavation site, how do they know which level is earlier and which is later? So, we will look at this illustration. Suppose people first start living on flat land, this which is known as layer 4. Over the years, the surface will gradually rise because people discard waste material and generally stay and rebuild houses in the same place. So after hundreds of years, this leads to the formation of a mound. So when this mound is dug up, what is found from upper layers of the mound is generally from a later time, and then what is found from the lower layers of the mound which are old. So mound is dug up from the later to older. Means layer 4 is the oldest, 3 is older, 2 is old, and 1 is the earliest. So these upper and lower layers are often referred to as levels, such as level 4 is the oldest and level 1 is the earliest. Now, other finds at Mehergarh include remains of square or rectangular houses, as you can see in this figure. Each house had four or more compartments. We can see one, two, three, four, some of which may have been used for storage. When people die, their relatives and friends generally pay respect to them. People look after them, perhaps in the belief that there is some form of life after death. Burial is one such arrangement. Several burial sites have been found at Mehergarh. In one instance, the dead person was buried with goats, which were probably meant to serve as food in the next world. We can see in this image. This is the person, and these are the skeletons of goat, which meant to serve as food in the next world. Now, a closer look at Dowjali Harding. This is a site on the hills near Brahmaputra Valley. So this is a site on the hills near Brahmaputra Valley, close to routes leading into China and Myanmar. Here stone tools, including mortars and pestles, have been found. These indicate that people were probably growing grain and preparing food from it. Other finds include jadeite. Jadeite is a stone that may have been brought from China. Also common are finds of tools made of fossil wood and pottery. Fossil wood was an ancient wood that has hardened into stone. Now, one of the most famous Neolithic sites is Çatalhöyük, which was found in Turkey. Several things were brought from great distances, such as flint from Syria, cowries from Red Sea, shells from Mediterranean Sea, and were used all this in the settlement. But remember, there were no carts at that time. So most things would have been carried on the backs of pack animals such as cattle or maybe by people. So this was our chapter 3rd of class 6 history, from gathering to growing food, and even in this we found out the answer of the Nuno. Let's see what was her question. Her question was, why was that so? Why different food at different places? So we have seen how varieties of food have emerged and why different food at different places. And now we have completed chapter 3, from gathering to growing food. If you have any doubts regarding this chapter, you can ask me in the comment section. If you all like my video, then kindly subscribe to my channel Naveen Chahat Lifelines, and also like, comment and share. Thank you for watching.